Welcome to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I'm your host, Rolph, the Anxiety Coach, here to help you conquer anxiety and build a calm, confident life. In each episode, we'll explore the tools, stories, and insights to help you take control of anxiety and live life on your terms. Without further ado, let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I'm Ross, and today we're going to be talking about something that trips up so many people who are making progress. But before we go into that, I do just want to say a massive thank you to absolutely everyone who has listened to the podcast so far. This is going to be the 9th episode that has come out, and I've already started to see the numbers are increasingly going up, and the last one was the most successful by quite a way. So thank you to everyone who is listening to it, sharing it, giving it to other people that may need it, which has been my ask. That is a massive thing you are doing to help someone else. So thank you so much. And if it's helping you, great. Please remember to rate it, etc. You can do that on any of the apps like Spotify or iTunes, etc. If you give it ratings, that also helps the algorithms and push it out to more people. And then you are also doing a part in helping people get help with their anxiety. So back into today's show. So I'll be talking about this subject that basically trips people up when they're making some progress. And the moment where you start to feel better and then suddenly, bang, your anxiety shows up again. There's that panic surge, a rush of emotions. You have that dreaded wobble, and your brain can quite often instantly go, I'm back to square one. And I really want to make this point clear with this one. That really is not the case. It doesn't mean that you are actually back to square one. It doesn't mean that it's not working. It doesn't mean that you're broken. What it normally means, I will go through in this podcast. People often also think, what if I'm stuck like this forever? Today, I want to completely reframe that moment for you, because what most people call a setback is often progress disguised as fear. So if you've had a dip recently, or you're terrified of the next attack, or you're currently listening to this and that tight feeling is in your chest and you're thinking, please just tell me what to do, then this episode is for you. And I'll give you a simple response plan that you can use the next time it hits. Okay, so let's get into it. When you have that moment where the wobble moment comes on, everyone often misunderstands this. So let me describe a moment you might recognize. You've been doing better. Maybe you've had a good week. Maybe your appetite has come back a bit. Maybe you've driven again for the first time. Maybe you went to the shop without checking your pulse 15 times. Maybe you even had a few hours where you actually forgot about anxiety for once. Then one day you feel this sensation, a twinge, a wave of dizziness, a flutter in your chest, a hot flush, and that detached, floaty feeling, a rush of adrenaline, and instantly your mind slams you into that emergency situation, that emergency button. You start scanning, you're checking, you're analysing, you start looking for certainty. And you think, why now? What did I do wrong? I thought I was over this. And then you start measuring yourself by this one moment. And that one moment becomes the judge, the jury, and that's for your entire recovery journey up to that point. Now, that is a trap, because your brain basically loves to turn one wobble into a full identity crisis over your anxiety, right? And then you can quite easily start thinking, I'm not someone who gets over anxiety. That is not the case. It can often go from you thinking that you're not someone who gets anxiety anymore, and then all of a sudden it's back to, I'm someone who's stuck with anxiety. Now, I want to slow that down for you today, because realistically, being totally honest with you, that wobble is not proof that you're failing. The wobble is often just proof that your nervous system is actually changing. What is actually happening when anxiety comes back, what is actually happening there? Do you know? Possibly not. Now, I want you to imagine you have a smoke alarm. It's not broken, but it's oversensitive. It goes off when you make toast. It goes off when you cook. It goes off if there's steam from the shower. It can go off over anything, right? Now, imagine you finally start treating that differently. Instead of sprinting around the house in panic every time it bleeps, you start doing something new. You look at it and go, right, that's the alarm doing its thing. Annoying, but not dangerous. And you just carry on. Now, at first, that might feel impossible. And like with your body, that's because your body is still reacting to them triggers. But you keep responding calmly. And over time, that alarm learns this isn't an emergency. And now here's the important bit. Just because you respond differently, for a while, it doesn't mean that the alarm never beeps again. It will still beep sometimes, especially when you're tired, when you're stressed, when you've had caffeine, and especially if you haven't eaten properly as well. If you've had like a big emotional week, you've been avoiding things, and then suddenly you started doing them again. Sometimes it might beep for no obvious reason. But that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. That does not mean that that smoke alarm is winning. It just means it's testing. It's checking. Do we still need to respond the old way? Yeah, so this is your nervous system we're talking about here. Does it still need to respond the old way? Do I still need to run around and treat it like danger? Or do I respond the new way? Because you have to remember at this point, you've gone likely through years, or if not likely months, of it doing the same thing, and it's a well-trodden path. And some people, maybe even your whole life. So when you start changing it, yes, you can put in measures and start doing different actions when it comes up. But often, every now and then, it's going to test and see, do I need to go back to the old way? Because it's still there, yeah? It's not completely overgrown and disappeared at this point. So, when I say about the wobble is a test, really try and remember that, because it is a test. It's not a reset. So your brain is not saying you're failing. It's just saying, are we still doing that old pattern? Or are we doing the new one? So are we still doing the old pattern, so the way it used to react, or are we doing this new one? And that will happen every now and then. So please don't let that put you off and think that you need to go back. And it's really important to remember here that recovery is not an absence of anxiety. Recovery is the presence of a new response. So when anxiety comes back, you're not back to the beginning. You're in a training moment, right? A practice moment. A moment where the pathway gets reinforced, not by how calm you feel, but by how you respond while you feel it. The real reason setbacks feel so convincing, the reason a wobble feels like a disaster, is actually quite simple. Your body reacts first, and then your mind explains it second. Your body feels the adrenaline, the tight chest, the shaky legs, the nausea, racing thoughts, and then your mind goes looking for a story that matches the intensity. And because the sensations feel intense, the story becomes intense. It becomes, this is dangerous. This is an emergency. This is different. This time, it might be real. But anxiety is a false alarm. It's your protection system firing without a real threat. And a wobble, therefore, is not proof that you are unsafe. You could be at home in the safest environment humanly possible, And just because you've had a wobble and it's unexpected, that doesn't mean you're back to square one. And it doesn't mean you're not safe. It's actually proof that your system still has a habit. And habits do not vanish overnight. They fade through repetition, and repetition includes wobble moments. So instead of asking, why is this happening? A better question is, who do I become in this moment? Who do I become in this moment? Do I become the old version of me that panics, that chases certainty? Or do I become the new version of me that allows discomfort and keeps living? That is the whole game. The 3 mistakes that turn a wobble into a relapse. And in fact, I'm not going to just give them all in one go. So let's rewind back a bit here. These are going to be 3 common mistakes, right? Where that little wobble does turn into a relapse, where you actually go backwards. And this is not for all people, okay? So this doesn't mean just because you've had a wobble, you are having a relapse. I've got to make that really, really clear. But this is the mistakes that can make that happen. So when it turns into a full spiral, so when you have that wobble and you let it go into a full spiral, this isn't because you're weak and it isn't because you're just doing the recovery side wrong. It's more so that your brain is trying to find relief. And sometimes relief seeking can be a fuel for anxiety. So here's the 3 mistakes. Mistake 1 is reassurance chasing. This is when the wobble hits and you immediately go looking for someone or something to tell you you are okay. You message someone and ask, do you think this is normal? You start Googling the symptoms. You scroll, you watch videos, you check forums, you book appointments you don't actually need. You purely just, and that's purely just to calm this fear, right? Now listen carefully. Sometimes you do need medical guidance, of course, but reassurance chasing is different. Reassurance chasing is not about care. It is about certainty. And the certainty is essentially like the drug that anxiety craves. Because certainty gives you relief for 5 minutes. Then your brain learns, next time we feel that sensation, we must chase certainty again. So you then end up doing it again and again and again. And slowly you train your nervous system to depend on that reassurance. So the wobble becomes bigger because your brain is not learning safety at that point. It's learning dependency. So mistake 2 is symptom checking and body scanning. So this is when you start monitoring what your body feels like. And does it feel like a threat? Pulse checking, breathing checking, swallowing checking, looking at your skin, testing your balance, doing little scans like, how do I feel now? How do I feel now? Oh, how do I feel now? And every scan is essentially a question in your brain. It's making that uncertainty become more prevalent and be the focus. And your brain will naturally start asking, is this dangerous? And your brain answers based on the fact that you asked a question. So if you're scanning, your brain will assume there must be a danger. So it stays activated. Symptom checking is like poking a bruise to see if it still hurts. Yes, it will. Of course. Do you do that? If you had a bruise on your arm, would you just keep poking it and going, oh, I can see it's still there, I'm going to keep poking it? Does it hurt? Now, when you think of it in that physical sense, it seems crazy to do that, right? But it's the same with anxiety. And you will end up convincing yourself that it's getting worse, okay, if you think in that way. So mistake free is avoidance and shrinking your life. And this is the sneakiest one. This really is the sneakiest one. And this is when the wobble hits and you start changing your life to avoid feeling that way again. So you might stop driving a certain way. You might stop driving completely. You might stop meeting up with your friends. You might stop going out entirely. You stop exercising. You avoid busy places. You avoid being alone. You might start avoid being in quiet rooms. You might start avoiding bedtime. You avoid anything that might trigger the sensation. And it makes sense, right? Because avoidance feels like you have that control back. But avoidance teaches the nervous system the exact lesson we do not want it to learn. And that feeling is basically telling it that that feeling is dangerous. This situation is unsafe. We must escape. And so the anxiety actually grows. Not because you're broken and not because your brain is doing its job. It is simply learning what we do, not what you say. So those are the three mistakes: reassurance chasing, checking, and avoidance. If you reduce those, your recovery speeds up massively. The way you respond is what turns wobbles into wins. When anxiety hits, you do not need a perfect mindset. No one has a perfect mindset. No one. Okay, we are humans. We are not perfect. And you don't have to feel brave. You just need a process that you can follow while your body is in that shouting mode, while it feels uncomfortable. And so here it is, 3 steps. And this is going to be super simple. And if you do this consistently, it will help you. You name it, you allow it, and you act anyway. Now let's break that down. So step 1 is you name it. So when that wobble hits, your job is to label it accurately, not dramatically, not medically, not as some mystery, but accurately. You say, this is a wobble. This is a false alarm. This is my nervous system firing. Even if part of you is going, yeah, but what if? You label it anyway. Because naming it stops your mind from creating a horror story. You are taking the steering wheel back. So you can literally say out loud, wobble. Or you can just say, false alarm, anxiety wave, whatever language feels natural for you, right? But choose to name it. Name it. Take that steering wheel back. Step 2 is you allow it. And this is the part most people resist because it almost feels backwards, right? But because allowing it feels like you're giving in, people think they can't do it. They don't want to do it, right? But trust me on this. Allowing it is super, super important because allowing it is not surrendering. Allowing it is removing the fight. And that fight is what keeps the alarm loud. If you wrestle anxiety, it interprets that as a threat. If you allow it, your brain learns this is uncomfortable, but it is not dangerous. So what does allowing it actually look like? It looks like letting the sensations be there, not trying to get rid of them, not trying to speed them up or slow them down. But it's more like, and it's also, it's also not about controlling them. Okay, so you're not trying to speed it up, slow it down, you're not trying to control it. But you can say to yourself, fine, be there. And I know that sounds probably a bit wild if you're in the middle of panic, right? But you're not doing this to feel better instantly. And that's really important. You're not going to say it and then just suddenly go, oh, I feel much better, right? We're playing the long game here. You're doing it to teach your system the truth. And the truth is your body can handle adrenaline. Your body can handle adrenaline, and adrenaline is anxiety. Your heart can beat fast. Your breathing can feel weird. You can feel dizzy. You can feel detached. You can feel shaky. And you can still be safe. So allowing it is super, super important. You are then dropping the battle. And if you don't let that battle be there, in the long game we're playing, it massively helps. So step 3 is about this act anyway. And this is where the real change happens. So when I say act anyway, I mean you do the next normal thing. Not something heroic, not something huge, massive that you've never done before. A normal thing. So if you're in the kitchen, you stay in the kitchen. If you are making food at the time, just carry on making that food, right? Or make a cup of tea. Do something normal. If you're walking, just keep walking. Yeah, don't sit down and put yourself into a panic state. Just carry on walking. Not faster, not slower. Just carry on. If you're at the shop, you finish what you came in for. If you're in bed, you stay in bed and you let them sensations rise and fall without turning bedtime into a war. Act anyway is it's how you rebuild that trust in yourself, because confidence is not a feeling that you can wait for. Confidence is evidence that you collect over time. So think of it like a jar, right? Every time you've got you've got an empty jar next to you. So every time you do this, you just act normal. You just take an action, a normal action. Imagine you're putting like a pound coin or some pennies in that jar, and it's like a token, a confidence token, and you're putting it in that jar. Visualize that, because that is all evidence. Every time you put it in there, you're collecting evidence of your confidence that you can do it anyway, regardless of what anxiety says. And acting anyway creates that evidence. Each one of them tokens you see in that jar is evidence of you overcoming your anxiety, of you beating it, of you being stronger. And that tells your brain, we can do life with discomfort. And that lesson is what dissolves anxiety over time. Now, I want to give you something you can save. If you want, you can literally pause this episode later and write this down. Here is what I call the wobble script. So say it slowly. This feeling is uncomfortable, not dangerous. This is a false alarm from my nervous system. I am not going backwards. This is a practice moment. I can allow this and keep living. My job is not to feel calm right now. My job is to respond calmly. I do not need certainty. I need repetition. This will pass on its own. And if you repeat that, when anxiety spikes, when it's coming up, you are literally training your mind to do what you actually want it to do. And that is not positive thinking, right? Because I've heard lots of people say that before, like, oh yeah, I just need to do positive thinking. This is not that. It's accurate thinking. Accurate thinking. We're cognitively rewiring your brain on how you respond to anxiety. And that is really important. We're not pretending, we are actually telling the truth. Now, here's what to do after that wobble passes. Now, once anxiety wave drops, you have a second opportunity. And this is where many people accidentally undo their progress. Because after a wobble, the brain wants to review. It wants to replay. What triggered it? What if it happens again? What did that symptom mean? How do I stop it? And you can end up giving it like an hour of attention after it's already gone. So here is your after wobble rule. Do not review it like a crime scene. Instead, you do a simple debrief. And this is 2 questions. Question 1 is, what did I do well? Even if all you did well was stay where you were for like 30 seconds longer than usual, that counts. That is a win. You have trained your brain to actually get some relief from the anxiety and actually start overcoming it. So question 1 is, what did I do well? And question 2 is, what is my next normal action? Is that make a cup of tea, send an email, take a shower, go for a walk, eat something small, carry on as normal? That is the best way to teach your brain that this isn't going to beat you. Not talking about your wobble, not just reliving it and reviewing it. That's how you move on, and that is confidence. Here's a quick example, actually, so you can picture that. Let's say you're in a shop and you have like a dizzy wave that hits you, okay? This old pattern, and you think, oh no. You scan, you start doing all your checks that you normally do, and you decide to leave. And you go home and you start Googling Dr. Google, and you message someone and you find this little bit of relief. But then you fear the next time even more. The new pattern is far better. You feel the dizzy wave. You say wobble. You allow it. You loosen your grip on that trolley. You keep walking slowly. You buy the thing you came in for. You leave when you are done, not when fear tells you to run. That is recovery. Not because you felt calm, but because you acted like someone who can handle the discomfort. And your brain learns fast from doing that. I want to give a listener challenge this week. And here is that challenge. Pick one small act anyway moment this week. Just one. And it could be teeny tiny, right? Because I appreciate everyone listening to this may be on entirely different levels of how much anxiety is affecting their life. But everyone can take a part in this. A community challenge, right? So just one example of an act anyway moment. It could be absolutely you could think it's the tiniest thing, but that's still important. It could be to stay in the room. It could be to finish the task. It could be to drive to the end of the road. It could be to go into a shop for 2 minutes and sit in with that sensation without checking. It could be to go to bed and allow that discomfort without it turning into some crazy project that you have to Google everything about. And when you do that, I want you to measure that progress differently. Not by how you felt, but by what you did. Ask yourself, did I respond differently? Because that is a win. And here's an important reminder. Change is not linear. Before I wrap up, I want to say this clearly. Change is not linear. You will have good days. You will have bad days. You will have wobble days. You will have weeks where you feel like you've absolutely cracked it. And then days where you feel like you are back in the fear. And that does not mean you're failing. It means you are human. And I know I say that a lot, but it's absolutely true. And it means your nervous system is learning. Think about any skill you've ever learned, like driving, certain gym routines, learning a job, how to be confident socially, right? How to ride a bike. So there's always days where you might struggle, right? But there's also days where it clicks. And there might be days where it feels awkward again. But you don't go, oh, right, I'm back to being a beginner. You go, oh, that was a rough day. I'm still learning. And you can probably apply that most to like your job if you're working, right? Because it's not like, if you were at a company, say 5 years, if you just have one bad day, you don't suddenly think the next day that you're a brand new beginner and asked to be like tutored again, or you're no longer able to independently work, do you, right? And anxiety is the same. you don't go back to the beginning. You're not starting over. You are reinforcing these positive habits that help you get over your anxiety. Think of every wobble from now on as being a rep, a bit of practice. And actually, that practice helps you get over it. So let's just recap what we've gone through today, because I know we've gone through absolutely loads there. But a wobble is not a reset. It is a test. The 3 mistakes that turn a wobble into a spiral are reassurance chasing, symptom checking, and avoidance. The 3-step response plan is to name it, allow it, and act anyway. And your wobble script is, again, along these kind of lines, but it's like, this feeling's uncomfortable, not dangerous. I'm not going backwards. This is a practice moment. What other ones I can't remember what other ones I said now. What other ones did I say? This is a practice moment. I can allow this and I can keep living. My job is not to feel calm right now. My job is to respond calmly. I do not need certainty. I need repetition. This will pass on its own. If this episode helped, here's what I would absolutely love you to do. Share it with someone who is stuck in the fear of going backwards. Because honestly, this one message can save someone months of suffering. And if you want more support, make sure you follow the podcast so you do not miss the next episode. Thank you so much to everyone who's taken the time to listen to this. Please feel free to comment. You can send me messages if you've enjoyed it. You can find me on all the socials. I love hearing the feedback from you guys, and I'm trying to make this show as good as possible for you. Until the next time, you've got this. Keep going. You're not going backwards. You're simply practicing. And I'll see you in the next one. Speak soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Anxiety Relief Podcast. I hope today's episode left you feeling a little more calm, confident, and in control. Remember, small steps every day can lead to a big transformation in your life. If you found this episode helpful, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who you think might benefit. For more tools and resources, head over to my website at www.rossrolph.com. And don't forget to join the Anxiety Relief Hub on Facebook, which is a supportive community where you can connect, share, and grow. Until next time.